Now say it, Clint. We wasn't live when you typed that. I guess some people on YouTube can see that I'm fixing to go live and they can actually comment, but I don't think that they can see me. I hope because I'm sitting here picking boogers and making sure there's nothing up my nose or making sure there's no wild hairs or anything, which is pretty much everywhere on me. What's going on, JJ? Good to see you, brother. So I don't know how they. I guess and just get notifications so it doesn't send them early because I get them too. But it seems I've seen a lot of people comment. I've opened up the stream like 10 minutes prior, but I didn't go live, and people start commenting. It's like, well, how in the hell are they comment if I ain't even opened the stream up yet? What's going on, O'Sheen? Good to see you, brother. Oh, I didn't get your message, bro. I'm sorry. I some days I'll get on Facebook, stay on there all days. Other days I won't even look at my phone. I don't. I'm not one of those people that keep their phone attached to my body, so it'll be sitting in the bedroom half the day. I don't even notice. So I'm sorry, but hopefully, well, I'll look at it here in a minute. But I got to share these links and greet everybody. If I can see, it's a little small for me. Actually, it's bigger on the screen. Does the screen look bigger to you, or is it just me? What we can read on the screen, does that look a little bigger than it used to be? It kind of does to me. What's going on, Gwynillis? Very interesting name. I like that, Gwynillis. Gwynillis. I'm probably butchering it. Sounds maybe Nordic. What's going on, Stephen? My head looks bigger. Well, actually, with the old setup, I was able to use my Logitech drivers and for my webcam. And with this new one, I don't know. I mean, I guess where I set it up under Windows 10, it naturally set up properly. But when I went to Windows 11, it's just using default Windows drivers, so I don't have the 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 settings that I used to have. It's an old camera. I mean, I'm surprised it even still works with the stuff. It's a 720p, so doesn't look bad. I mean, it's not full HD, and I don't know if you want to look at me full HD, so maybe it's a good thing. But yeah, it's from like 2012, 2014. It was good for the day. Back when it came out, it was one of the best ones, and has decent, which is okay. And it's a little grainier than it used to be. So it used to be a little bit better quality, but for a camera that's old and does as good as I need it to do, I don't really need y'all to see every little wrinkle on me, maybe. But it's got some other things tracking. It's not tracking my head if I move or if I bounce my leg. It probably makes the camera go up and down. So that's probably a good thing. What's going on, Hellbilly? Good to see you, brother. Warming up. Like it. Got in the 60s, almost 70 today. Looks cleaner to you? Good. That's good. Maybe it's better then. But it doesn't do the tracking thing, and I don't have the options to go into the Logitech thing. But again, I may be able to get it set up using the old drivers and old software and try to see what I can do with it. But this is on the new gaming rig I built, so I have been having a little bit of issues with it gaming. Maybe I clocked it up too much. I'm thinking maybe it was overclocked because after I adjusted the overclock down a little bit, it's been a little more stable. So hopefully that was all it was. It's a little hell setting up on my drivers, but wasn't as easy as it used to be. This things getting a little more complicated. You think AI just figure out everything for you, know what you need, and just do it. Hopefully they'll get there soon. What's going on, Drew? Good to see you. Good to see you. How are you tonight? All right, so let me share these links and we'll get to chatting. Let's see. I hope let me share more than they did last week initially. I got to share about as many as I normally do, but I had to share half of them later, so that wasn't good. So I hear myself in my headset there, and I don't like that. You can probably hear it on the microphone too, so I had to move it away that a little bit. Yeah, I'm gonna have to mute that. I don't want to hear me. There, that should work. Yeah, that's got it. Good deal. So where was I? All right, let me get these links out. So this is where Clint entertains everybody. I want to see all the conversations going on, so it kills me that I'm not able to see it. I have to share these stupid links. Eventually, and we'll get Clint to help me share them once he gets in a situation where he can. That way, we can just share them all at once and take turns and do stupid pet tricks while the other one shares links. I used to like that on Dave Letterman's show, and that what was that did the stupid pet tricks. It's pretty fun. So hope everybody's having a good week. I think Northern California's not. Where you at out there? You getting a lot of snow out there, Ocean? I hear a lot of snow in Northern Cal. I'm not sure where you are out there, where old Marfugel is, but I hear they're getting a lot of snow. All right, let's see. All right. We'll see how many of these I can get it out to. And then we'll chat. And I'm already going to be 10 minutes behind, but that's just a necessary evil. I hate it, but that's what we got to do to get the podcast out. Got to be out there for people to see if you want people to see it, you know. So just bear with us. We get these shared. Hopefully everybody had a nice day today. It was pretty nice here. A lot of the snow and ice is melting, but we still got some. We've had several 60-degree days, almost 70, and we still have big, huge ice mounds that just haven't gone away. I told Ann it'd probably be March before some of them go away. More days like today, I might be wrong, though. It's pretty nice. But I like looking on the pages that I'm sharing too, see what's going on and what's being posted. A lot of times it's the only chance I get to see what's happening in some of them. Let's see. This is Mark's. Let me see. Make sure he's not. Yeah, he doesn't have a live going out now. Let's see how many they let me do before they stop me. Lord, I was going to say they better not stop me yet. I ain't even hardly got started here. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, I do have some good news to share. So I can share it now that it's already been made official. But Farm to Bottle this year is going to have Mary Cutter, the one and only Mary Cutter. Awesome. So I'm sure all of you know who she is. And if you don't, need to look her up, check her out. She's got some really good songs going. Her first song, "Devil's Money," was a huge hit, millions and millions of views on social media and all over, and kind of rocketed her career up. But yeah, she's going to be at Farm to Bottle, so that's going to be awesome. Look forward to seeing her. I think August 28th is Saturday. I'll check my calendar here in just a minute, but I'm pretty sure I think that's the day. We'll double check that in just a minute, but let me get these links out first. Yeah, she's got some great songs out. Very energetic person. I've seen her in some interviews already, several interviews already. Roger had him on his show, and she did a little interview with them, and she's pretty spunky. She's a good old Kentucky gal. But yeah, she started out. She did her own marketing, promoted herself. I kind of talked to her early on, and I guess it was her. You know, there were so many imposters. I don't know. Hopefully, it was her. But I tried to get her hooked up with a buddy of mine in Nashville, and he just wasn't able to do anything at the time, and it was really before she, was super prominent. It was just after that first song came out, and I knew that she was definitely going to be going places, and so I was trying to get her some help, and she didn't even have a agent at the time. So she did a lot on her own, did a lot of her own marketing, promotions, and stuff. So definitely grassroots and awesome. And the story is a true story about her grandfather. He was a bootlegger and gave a lot of his earnings to the church and helped build a church. And so there's truth to that. And she grew up a little later in life, than me. But talks about the cornbread mafia and a lot of stuff that happened back in my day. I knew a little bit about that at the time. Damn it, they limited me. Let's see. That's less than usual, man. That's crazy. So I guess I have to share these at 9. We'll try again later. All right, let me go back and see how much I've missed already. So I got all my stuff in place for my rum, just waiting to get it completed. Doing chocolate pistachio orange. Man, very interesting. Definitely interesting. Yeah, they might. I'm not sure, but a show that's been on for, more than a years, been doing it for a few years now. You'd think coming from the same source they would know, right? And they would just base it on, coming from my stream page. But I don't know. It could be, but it has varied, the numbers used to, it was a fixed amount and then it dropped and then it increased. And for a while it was increased. And I thought, oh, they finally recognized me, but I think once you get so many people, on the page, that's why I'm trying to encourage people there. I don't like self promotion and all that. I've never been about that. But I've been told once you get, so many people on the page, they expect more activity like that and they may open it up. I don't know. But maybe I should just send them a little note. Rufus joined us for the show. That's cool. I got me a indoor and outdoor cat. I don't know about my old outdoor cat, my old tomboy. I don't know. He may not made it. He was looking pretty bad. He been sickly. You know, he's feral, so you know it's not like I could put him in a cage and take him to the vet. You know, he'd go crazy. You know, he just yeah, you couldn't. You know, it's where I could barely just pet him, and he was still very skittish and scared of me. After 7 years of feeding him, all I could do was pet him. I couldn't pick him up; he'd freak out, and you know, so I wanted to take him to the vet, but I couldn't. So I got on the internet and kept him alive for a while. I don't know if I just prolonged the agony or helped him. I don't know. Hopefully, he'll still be around. He comes and goes. He's gone for this long before and come back, and I thought the same. He's probably gone, so we'll see. How can you make moonshine? Well, you came to the right place to learn. First things first, you got to figure out what kind of moonshine. What do you like to drink? That's the first question. You know, do you like vodka? Do you like whiskey? You like rum? You know, a lot of different distillates, gin. You know, got to figure out what you like to drink first, and then we can kind of cater what still you get and your recipes based on what you like to drink. Most people tend to, you know, start out with something that they enjoy, and then they kind of branch out after that and experiment a little. But yeah, you found the right place, brother. Just answer the questions, and we'll go back and forth, and you know we'll get you going. So just let us know what you like to drink and what your you know what your anticipation is. What do you expect expectations are? How long will Backset last in the fridge to keep safe to rerun? Long time, man. It'll keep for a long time as long as you keep it covered and it's refrigerated. Um, it'll last a long time. Now it's a run, I guess, that you got in the middle of the run and then you had to stop. I mean, you don't even have to really refrigerate it. You could put it back into, you know, airlocking. It definitely helps. I'm not saying you have to. You know, a lot of people say, "Well, I've done this for years and I've never done." That's that's fine and dandy, you know. But airlocking it does help. You can't take that away from it, you know. So, you know, I'm not saying you have to, but it helps. And anybody that says it doesn't help, then just doesn't know. But it definitely helps. But it's not a necessity. But it can make it better and taste better and get less bacteria and other things and issues going on. So, but it depends on what you have too, you know. But yeah, so if you just get in the middle of a run and you have to stop, don't leave it in the still. You did the right thing by taking it out of the still. If I'm assuming that's what you did, especially if it's copper, because it's pretty acidic. So you don't want to leave that copper in there for a long period in that back set in that copper for a long period of time because it's fairly acidic and it will definitely eat up your copper and cause it to oxidize and turn green and it's hard to clean out. And once you do that, you get kind of a etched surface area and you know that makes it oxidize quicker and more easily. But yeah, when he says backset clean, I think he's talking about just what's left in the still. He didn't get a quite get finished, so he's wanting to redistill it and finish the distillation. That's what I'm assuming. But yeah, when we generally talk about backset, we if you get stopped in the middle of the run, it's still pretty much considered a mash, right? When we consider it backset is when we run it down and either run it to the tails or should be running it to where most of the tails are out. And then what's left over is generally called a backset. Fairly acidic, lots of flavor in there still, because basically all you've taken out of it, you've taken water and alcohol out, right? Some flavor, but mostly water and alcohol. And you've left a lot of concentrated flavors. Don't drink it. It's horrible. It's very concentrated, and it's got some bad flavors to it too. But that flavor, can be carried over to the next distillation if you want to pour some backset in it and use it. Most people think it'd probably muddy it, but yeah, you use that backset to adjust your pH for your sour mash and to make it sour, right? And to create the sour mash traditionally. Now they just mix sugar and backwash and just pour it over the old spent grains, and that's kind of, it's okay for a few generations, but they get washed out. Correctile dysfunction. That's funny. That's a good one. Let's see. All right. I'm going to get too far behind already. 10 minutes. All right. Oh, well, I'm not too far behind. I can't scroll any further down, so we're good. All right. Yeah, that was funny. All right, got a question. All right, here we go. Got a question about the culture of moonshine. All right. I mean, this is no disrespect anyway at all. Why is popcorn cut Sutton such an icon where it feels like he was the only shiner you ever hear about? I love his videos, and he seems to be a great shiner and guy. It's all about notoriety these days, and the internet. And let me move my camera over. So Johnny Knoxville did a special, and he wanted to go visit a moonshiner and do a little, I guess, series on visiting this moonshiner and finding out what made him tick. Just an interview, and maybe get him doing it live, and kind of promote his show on YouTube and stuff. And I won't say exploiting him, but there are some people that do exploit some people. We've got some people in Appalachia that have suffered from years of inbreeding, and there's this family that has suffered from inbreeding, and there's some YouTuber that goes up there and interviews them, and that's exploitation to me. He's basically putting them out there for the world to see and exploiting them for views. That's one thing. I don't think Johnny Knoxville was doing that with popcorn, but I think he just wanted to, get a little bit of folk, content and promote. Popcorn was pretty popular in his area. He never hid what he did. He would go to local festivals, and make moonshine right there in front of God and everybody. He never cared, and he told everybody that's what he did. And he never really hid it. He got in a little bit of trouble from time to time doing it. And, he had some, of course, buddies, and Mark and Digger and Jim Tom and a bunch of them all were, friends and did a lot of things together. JB, and, a lot of these people we know, they're part of the community. So they, did his own thing. And, but really that drew a national attention. And with that national attention, I guess when you put it in their face nationally like that, and they have to kind of do something, right? And I think that's also in certain areas, law enforcement, in that area, North Carolina has ALE, And that's pretty much what they do. That's alcohol law enforcement, right? And that's their whole job, is to enforce, bootlegging and in the legal industry as well, and make sure all the laws being followed and enforced and everything. So kind of put it in their face, and so left them with little choice. So they, did a little investigating, went up, and sure enough, they caught him running a shitload of shine with a big, huge submarine pot, and he got in quite a bit of trouble, and was gonna, go to jail for a little time, and he was pretty popular, not just in that community, but I mean, there was some bootleggers that was taking his stuff up into, the bigger cities. I guess New York, Chicago. He had a little bit of a name there, and he's run a pretty good sized pot, and he was, but now that was pretty fine and dandy until he went kind of national on YouTube, and everybody, millions and millions of views, and you got representatives from that area, people calling them from the feds, what's going on in your area? You're just allowing this to go on and all that. So they had to do something, and they kind of forced their hand. And unfortunately, he got caught, and he's looking at some time. I don't think the time was going to be as bad as what he thought. I think he would have probably gotten parole pretty quickly, but he said, "Fuck it, I ain't going to do it." I'm not going back into jail. I've been there, done that, and he took his own life, to not to avoid having to go back. Very unfortunate. But as far as his liquor, is it the best? No, his liquor isn't what gave him his name, but he was renowned for it. Like I say, in the bigger cities where a lot of his liquor, went. There's not enough people in that area. There's so many, bootleggers and moonshiners in the area where he grew up. You had to find better avenues of marketing if you wanted to sell and make money, money at it. But yeah, he made good shine. Probably not the best, but is there such a thing, right? So that's what happened with him. Unfortunate, very unfortunate. But yeah, passing on kind of, created the legacy, right? And basically, him just saying "fuck you," to the man, and kind of made him a outlaw legend, But yeah, everybody liked him. Yeah, Clint Sutton, people around there loved him. He was always very open book, like most of us, hillbillies are. We will tell you our life story if you're interested enough to listen to it. We don't care. We don't have any secrets. We don't lie a lot, most of us. And I'll tell you about everything you want to know about us if you're interested enough and wait around long enough to hear it. Kentucky South. Oh, there's a question. I'm trying to find. Keep scroll down on me. Where would you buy wheat, specifically red winter wheat in Kentucky, not only for making liquor but for food storage? I tell you, I get mine off a feller over. It's a little bit south of. You're gonna make me open up a map. Shelbyville, kind of south. Farmer farms it every year. I forgot to get some this year. I'm gonna pay. Definitely, literally gonna pay for it, but he sells it cheap, man. 40, 50 pound bags, like 12, $13. It's cheap and really good, clean red winter wheat. They also sell a lot of pork and stuff. I'm trying to think of their names. They're on Facebook Marketplace. Let me see, might be able to find them going through that. Let me try there because I've got them on my Marketplace thing. Let me find my Marketplace and see their names are on the tip of my tongue. Where in the hell? See more. They've changed all this. let's see. It's in Fisherville, on Fisherville Road. Colby. I thought it would show their name here, though. I got his name. And I'm not going to put his phone number out there on the line, but yeah, you want to call them and get up with them. I need to see if they got any bags left. I doubt it, but yeah, they sell a lot of different. I'm trying to see if there's if I saved anything. Let's see here. So they're good people, and they also. Damn, I wish I had brought that Harley. That was I saved Heritage. But no, it's not on there. Dang on it. I thought I had them purchased. Let's see. No. Submitted alerts. Following. Should be under following, maybe. Damn, it's not. How in the hell? Oh well. I'll try to find. I know their names on the actual bag of wheat. I'm trying to think of their last name. Colby was his name. I can't think of his last name, but I'll get it for you, and I'll share it Saturday. I doubt they have any more left. Usually in the October, November is usually the best time to get it right at the things start getting cold. What's going on, Moonshine Willie? Hell yeah. Not copper, huh? I got you. I know what kind of pot you're talking about. Yeah, there's a lot of history. There is a lot of history. It's it predates the internet, so you don't see a lot of it on the internet, but there's a lot of old history. Jimmy Johnson and Junior Johnson. I mean, and Willie Clay Call, my relative. There's a lot along Thunderhead Road. There's a lot of old history if you dig deep enough. But as far as viral post internet, what you're going to find is mostly modern day moonshiners, I guess you could call them, that basically came moonshiners because of the show and for the way of life instead of for the love of liquor. So a lot of people, it's just kind of done it just to kind of find a place. And that's cool too. Whatever reason gets you in it, I don't have a problem with it. That's cool. Whatever brings you into it, whether it's a show, I did it long before the show. Actually, I still got a Facebook group that predates the show by several years, so I was always into it, since I was a kid. But yeah, it's different these days. A lot of people a lot more open about it. Me sitting talking about it like I do now would have never happened 20, 30 years ago. No way. You tight-lipped about everything, right? Nowadays, nobody gives a shit. And I'm not, doing anything of any scale that would ever get me in any kind of trouble or anything. I'm not selling it. So, I don't mind sharing it. It's a hobby, and I think, I'm not going to judge people if they do it for more than a hobby. That's on them. I know a lot of people growing up that did sold a lot of liquor and made a lot of liquor. So I'm not going to judge nobody, but now for me, it's just a hobby, and I enjoy making a little brandy and a little wine and enjoying the brandies have been a lot of fun the last 10 years or so. I've been doing a lot of wines and brandies and I've really enjoyed that. But before that, it was all about the grains, and I do need to get in the grains because I'm I'm gonna fill me up. I got a couple little barrels that little small barrels that I'm gonna fill up, and once I do that, I can kind of kick my feet up and just sip off those and till I'm not able to sip anymore, I guess. And if they get empty, I guess I'll just have to fill them up again. I don't know. Every once a year, I might make a run just to top them off, and let them age and go that way, and just kind of top them off every year. I think I'll have a brandy barrel, a mixed brandy barrel, and a 5 grain in the other one. But yeah, Marketplace is a good place to start. That's how I found these guys, and that's the best way to find somebody local. Just open up Marketplace, type in wheat, and boom, they popped right up. Gave them a call, and within 4 or 5 days, I was there and followed up the next year. And I mentioned it in the podcast just past fall and wrote it down, forgot all about it, and I get so busy and forgetful, so I didn't get a chance to. But yeah. I got a little bit left from last year. I hadn't been doing a lot of grains, so I got a little bit, but yeah, I definitely need more. I'll find somebody who's got it. Maybe they'll have some white wheat or something a little bit different. Yeah, Amos Law. There's another. Yeah, Amos Law. Big name. Yeah, there's a lot of names that it's just if you listen to the Moonshiner Show, they'll refer to some of these old timers a little bit. But a lot of times people don't want to, they're not going to give the names out of everybody they know. I mean, I'm not going to talk about everybody I knew that made it back in the day. I'm not going to put them out there like that. But everybody knew, if you lived in that town, everybody knew, that's where to go get it. I don't think they have it up there anymore, or else I'd talk about where we used to go. But they still may be doing it there. I hadn't been there in a long time. All right, let me check real quick for you here. Let me look here, Kentucky South. Let me see what I got on Marketplace. If I got any place local here that still got something. Let's see. Winter wheat, Shepherdsville, 50-pound bags, $9 each. And that's probably the same people. They might be cheaper now than they used to be. Let's see who the seller is. No, it's a different outfit. That's in Shepherdsville. Yeah, if you just type in wheat on I need to save this. I need to call these people. That looks like some good clean wheat too. I'm looking for. Don't see any ergo on it or anything like that, so it looks pretty good. I don't know, it might not be as clean as the last I got, but it looks good enough for me. So, locally grown winter wheat out of Shepherdsville. Let's see if I can find some more on here. Let me go back. I'll open it in a new page. I need to check them out. A lot of wheat straw. Organic cracked wheat out of Columbus. That looks pretty good. Organic cracked wheat. Of course, you can't malt it when it's already cracked like that. But $8. I don't know if that's a pound or what. Let's see what you got going on there. $8 for 2 quarts. Nope. That's a quick no. That's pretty pricey. Sprouting wheat, Wilmington, Ohio, $2. Is that a pound? $2 per ounce. Man, what do they think this is gold? What the hell? Man, I'm gonna start buying cracked wheat and malting it and selling it with roots hanging out of it. It was over malted anyway. But yeah, that's a lot in Indiana. Feed wheat. It's all red winter wheat. Feed wheat or so, 50 pounds, $7 for 50-pound bags, North Carolina. So yeah, look if y'all looking, just marketplace should have some people. I see Custer, Ohio, $10. Hopefully that's not an ounce. I can't believe those people. $2 an ounce. That's crazy. 60-pound bags for $10. There you go. Non-GMO soft red. But a lot of these may not have it, but it's something to put in your Rolodex to give them a call when the time comes, or make friends with them and just say, well, let me know when you'll have it, and we can make that drive. Because if you're gonna buy at $10 for a 60-pound bag, go ahead and just spend $100 and get 600 pounds, right? And just put it in your barrels and seal them up good and tight, and keep them dry and cool. And they'll last a long time but if normally they dry them out pretty well. So you definitely want them to have a certain level of dryness. We talk about 16%. Anything over that, you might get mold. So there's no wheat light. I got me old mining hat wheat light from back in the day. But yeah, get on marketplace. You should be able to find somebody. And if not, like I say, if they don't have it, make friends with them and say, when will you have more? Do you know anybody around you that might have it? And when will you have it again? Because it's best. I like buying it in the fall like that. What's going on, Mark? Good to see you, brothers. I like buying it in the fall and winter like that. That way you can put it in those barrels and get it outside. That way, if there's any bug larvae or any kind of bugs on it at all, weevils or anything, they'll get killed right off. Especially good cold winter like this will kill them off. And then in the spring, just make sure they're in a good dry place. So if you got a utility building, it gets good cold and good and dry, put them out in the building in a barrel that's got mine has the little snap ring lids that seal. And I mean, they stay good and bone dry. I mean, they were used for medicines and powdered medicines and stuff for shipping and storage. So they stay pretty dry. If I ever run a double thumper, no, I've seen quite a few. I mean, if it's advanced, you're definitely going to get higher proof. You're getting an extra distillation, so you're definitely pulling off more water. You're going to bump the proof up. You can use it for infusion. Use the first thumper to bump up the proof, and the second to infuse the flavor. There's no right or wrong. Experiment with it and see what you think. It's just another method. Just another method of doing it. But it will, probably take quite a bit longer. You're going to have to wait for it to heat up, and you're going to get a lot of buildup in there before it gets heated up. The further you get away from that steel and the further you're piping those vapors, the longer it's going to take. And, so you need drains to make sure that you don't overfill. And, but yeah, I've seen quite a few systems with double thumpers. It's perfectly fine, legit. A lot of craft distillers do a double thumper. Oh, having trouble casting it. I noticed that Netflix, we can't cast it to the TV from the phone anymore. Used to, we cast it to the TV from the phone. Now we have to log on through the TV and all that and go through all that. And like when we go to other people's houses and stuff and they don't have it. Used to, we just, cast it to their television. Yeah, we can't do that anymore. So I don't know. Now that ain't shadow. That's what would you call the thing that casts the shadow? That's the real McCoy. Yeah, that's Marky 1 instead of Mark 2. Yeah, I agree. It is time for a shot. Take me a sip of that honey shine. See how much it's matured since Saturday. Not a lot of change, but I did notice a lot of change over a few weeks' time. I guess a lot of the higher volatiles just kind of aired off over the first few weeks sipping on it. But it hasn't changed much in the last few, so I guess most of those are gone. I haven't left it open. It's good. Got a touch of heads, but most of it does. It's it's not esterified. Yeah, we about got everybody here. I ain't seen Wayne, a few others. I don't know. There's Mash Brothers. What's going on, brother? I ain't seen Scott chime in yet, so we got a few stragglers. He's usually tardy. What's going on, Chris? Good to see you, brother. Hope things are warming up there. Yeah, I love watching the show. It's a lot of entertainment. A lot of it's funny, and like Mark and Digger when they got a lacto infection, acting like it's the first time they'd ever seen it. They've dealt with that. They've been shining a long time. They've seen that before, but just for the show, acting like, oh my God, what's this? What's it gonna do? We're gonna die, and dramatizing everything. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, they've seen a lot of lacto in their life. They've been doing it a long time. JB, Popcorn, and all of them. They'd seen lacto before. It has gotten a lot of people involved. It's kind of brought it back. It was moonshine was slowly becoming, and I'll add another layer to that. So moonshine was becoming slowly a dying art and folk art, and it was spiraling. But also, fewer people are drinking now than ever. So without that show, I think moonshine would have pretty much, because a lot of the hillbillies that used to drink are now pillbillies. They're into pills and other things, and they're not drinking as much, and they're doing different things, and legalization of Mary Jane, I think, has had a big impact on the drinking industry, the alcohol industry. People are having an alternative to doing things that make them feel better. A lot of people drink because it makes them feel good and loosens them up a little bit and helps them dance, they think, and get a little liquid courage in them. But yeah, I make a lot of plum brandy and plum wine. Hell yeah, man! A lot. That's one of my favorites. But it don't last a long time. The plum wine doesn't. So you get it. It gets made into brandy. But yeah, I love me some plum wine and brandy. Slivovich is what they call it over in, I guess, the Eastern Bloc of Europe. Ukrainians, and then a lot in that area, Russians and Slovenians and Slovakians all do it. What's called a Slivovich plum brandy, basically plum shine, and Slivovich is what they call it. Yeah, it's good stuff, real good stuff. You've never watched Moonshiners? Oh, you gotta watch it, man. It's a lot of fun. It gets silly. What's going on, Leo? Good to see you, brother. I mean, I watched it until I didn't have Discovery anymore. I don't have that channel anymore. So JB used to Wagon Maker used to put it on his page, and hopefully I'm gonna have to go over and check it out. But I hadn't seen the last couple of years of it when my mom was still alive, and I took care of her. She had it over there, and we'd watch it while I was taking care of her. Uh, but after she passed, I haven't had access to that channel. Oak Island, yeah. And what's the one? What's the one? The farm that's got the aliens or some frog farm or some shit. I can't remember. What is the name of that? They're trying to find aliens and buried treasure and all this. I can't remember. They're fun shows to watch though. I like a lot of that stuff. It's a lot of fun. 50-mile-an-hour winds, 6 to 12 inches of snow makes things. Nope. No, it's not so good then. I'll tell you what, brother. I brought up apple seeds from trees. You know, apple trees from seed, I should say. So yeah, you can go out and buy an apple and just plant that seed and grow it and take care of it and raise it. I've got one out in the yard of Fuji. It's not real hard to do, just time consuming, and it takes a lot of time to go from seed to sapling, like a 2 foot tall one that you'd buy. Years, right? It takes a long time. And it takes even more time for them to start producing. And you need to make sure that you put pollinators around it so they can cross pollinate, and you have to have the right kind. Um, but yeah, if you're young and you got some land, yeah, plant a bunch of apple trees. And you, like I say, you can grow your own. You're young, you got plenty of time. You could start some out that way, but also start some from seed. They're free, so you can have a whole shitload of them. Same thing with peaches. You know, get you some peach trees going. Um, you know, I saw a little thing earlier. I probably should post it, but there's a lot of other kind of strange fruit that's easy to grow that just grows like crazy. That a lot of people don't think about, pawpaws and other fruits. But yeah, growing those in in our in Kentucky, a lot of that'll grow real well. But also get you some berry bushes, and you can clone that and stick it in the ground and clone it and spread them out and put them along fence lines. You know, and they love climbing on those fences and using it. And you'll have fence rows full of blackberries and blueberries and raspberries and gooseberries, and just plant them along every fence row you got, and plant all the fruit trees you can. I'm really surprised that I've said it before, and I'll keep preaching it till eventually they'll do it. But I guess the food industry keeps them from doing it. But why, on our public lands, don't we have a lot of fruit growing for people just to go out and pick free if they want to? Well, nut trees, go out and pick all the nuts you want. And I guess people might end up fighting over them, but just plant all you want, and let it grow wild, let it feed the wildlife, and I don't know, but I think that would help feed a lot of people, right? Most people are no, you can't malt cracked grain. That's why I'm saying you wouldn't be able to malt it. Um, so yeah, it'd be nice to have all of our national forests full of old indigenous nut trees and apple trees. You heard the story of Johnny Appleseed planting them everywhere. I think that I know it's crazy, and it? It's like $2 an ounce, man. Can you smoke it or what? Jesus Christ, that's crazy. It's not showing you that on Facebook. Well, hell, brother. I tell you what, friend me up on Facebook, man. Send me a friend request if we ain't already. I'm sorry for where I got like 3,500 friends and people. It's hard for me to keep track of who has and who hasn't yet. But if you haven't yet, jump on the Moonshine Militia page. I hope you're on there. But jump on the militia page of my DIY shining and steel building page, and shoot me a message, and I'll send you some copies of what I'm seeing. Right. I'm sorry if I confused by what I said. I said when I saw it cracked like that, I'm like, yeah, but being cracked like that, you wouldn't be able to malt it. So I'm sorry if my wasn't real clear. I've got this thing turned up all the way. Yeah, that's about $25 for shipping. Usually about $12 a bag here, 10, 12, 14 a bag. I think I was paying 12 from these guys, and I've seen one that's 9, so I'm definitely going to be calling her. What is the disadvantage to a 2-inch column on a 16-gallon steel? None. There's, might be a disadvantage to a 4-inch column, slightly. The size of your bubble plates would be the most disadvantageous thing, I would say. Would be on a 2-inch, you're limited to the bubble plate size, so you might have to go up a little higher to get the same, coverage as you would with a 3 or 4-inch with larger plates. But having a 2-inch column versus 5/8 copper coming off of it, like a lot of them, you'd be a lot better off. And you can put your copper mesh, like we talk about, inside something that large without loosely rolled in there without it becoming a problem. So, but if you're trying to make whiskey and you're trying to get more flavor, it might be better to have you a cap and a proper lin arm tapering off. It'll be a little bit different. Columns generally are for more of a reflux type, which a little higher proof, a little less flavor, but it doesn't have to be, right? So you can kind of do a little bit of best of both worlds. You can get a little bit of reflux and still get a little bit of flavor and kind of have flavor and proof to a point. But it's only disadvantageous when comparing it to other methods, and that wouldn't necessarily be a disadvantage. It's just not maybe the best for right. So if you want to make whiskey, probably better to have a cap. If you want to make vodka, definitely have a bigger column with a deflegmator and deflamator, whatever you want to call it, and having a lot of reflux. If you want to do something kind of in between, then a smaller column without a lot of bubble plates, bump you up a little bit and still maintain a lot of flavor. So it's not necessarily disadvantageous. It's just, what are you wanting? What are you trying to do? And is it the best for what you're trying to do? Maybe not. If that makes sense. Barrels, no, wrapping ages, it just can't do it. You can't wrap it age like that. Time and esterification is you're not gonna. Wood chips give you tannins. Barrels give you character. So if you just want a charred, woody flavor, it will take it to the next level, right? So you've got White Dog. You put it on. I use staves, so I'm not browbeating anybody. I use the staves, and it gives you kind of a better flavor, right? It's more whiskey like, but is it top shelf bourbon like? No, it's not. It's just doesn't have the notes, and it won't ever have the notes. It's just more tanniny. You getting that char, the smoky, you getting some tannins, you getting that bitterness, but you're not really getting the esterification and the character that you would in a barrel. Yeah, and it's going to be better than 3/8 or 5/8 or half inch coming off of steel that size. You won't have the back pressure that other people are dealing with. You'll be able to regulate your temperatures better. You'll be able to fit some mesh in it. Whereas the smaller stuff, I don't recommend 1.5 inch. 2 inch fine, but anything smaller than that, I wouldn't recommend doing it. What's going on, Alpha Bomb? Hey, brother, I enjoy it. I hope you all do too. It's a great hobby. Yeah, you can't. You got to put it in a vessel. So what are you going to do? Put it in plastic? For many years and let the ethyl acetates and everything eat away at the plastic? No. So I mean, it's a great storage vessel, and it ages it. It's just the way it's always been done, and it's the best method. Um, but stainless tanks with chips is just you're not going to get penetration in and out of the wood. You're not going to pull char notes out. You're just going to get the tannins and you're not going to get the toasted notes. You're just going to get the char. So it's all about just the character and time. Yeah, ask all the questions you want. That's what we're here for. Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Looking for the alien skinwalkers. That was fun. I'm a little bit behind, not too bad. Is for someone starting, is there anything to look for when it comes to wanting to get a certain flavor, whether it be tart flavor or sweet flavor from a fruit? First of all, you're going to have to learn really to make a good wine to start with, and then learn to distill it. Then you're going to learn how much flavor distillation takes away from your wine and from the fruit and the sweetness and the uniqueness. To add that back into it, you're going to pretty much, if you're running pot stills and like what we do, you're going to have to use what we call an infuser. And that basically runs your vapor through a smaller chamber that's infused with that fruit, with that flavors, often sweetened up a little bit to get that sweet, fruitier flavor kind of bonded with the vapors as it goes through, and then it condenses and it carries a little bit of that flavor forward with it. Not a lot, but enough to make it to where you can tell what fruit it was made from, and a pretty good little bit of that fruit flavor. This day and time, though, people don't care so much. So post flavoring is becoming a new thing that people don't mind. And when when you make something that's basically like 140, 60 proof, and you flavor it, post flavor it, but you still have 100 proof, that's not like taking 100 or 80 proof and mixing it with some flavor and getting something 40 proof and sweet, right? So you're still getting a lot of the alcohol and a lot of the flavors. So you're starting out with a higher proof. So you can still have high proof and flavor at the same time. And a lot of people are liking that because it's not mixed drinky, right? It doesn't taste like a mixed drink. It still tastes like something that was distilled, but it has a color to it and a flavor to it that's really next to impossible to get if you don't post, right? You just don't get that kind of flavor coming off the drip. Infusion will definitely add a lot of that, but not that much, right? So if you don't mind a little bit of color to it and don't mind, back in the day that was unheard of. This day and time, that seems to be what everybody's doing. Everybody loves it. So that's the trend these days. Fewer people are drinking. They're drinking different things. A lot of people like some of the seltzer, with the little moonshine seltzers, that kind of mixes the carbonation, and some people like wine mixed with some of their shine, and kind of the higher proof wine, and that not degassed, that still has that bubbly taste. There's a lot of new things that people are enjoying. That's kind of getting away from the old traditional. And there's a lot of old shiners that that don't want that to happen, but it's still going to happen, right? So don't sweat it, man. Can't believe it's still not letting me post. And it's been an hour. I'll have to wait a little bit longer. But yeah, that's the way you're going to pull most of your flavor. But making a really good wine, and of course, once you do that, you'll appreciate the process, and it make a cleaner brandy, a truer wine. A lot of people use a lot of sugars in their brandies. True brandy is made with mostly fruit, and that gets very expensive. So being able to, that's why I say plant all these peach trees, plant all these, grapevines, plant all the stuff that you can, because, if you're young, when you get middle-aged, you'll have all kinds of fruits, and it's fine. If you don't want to pick them, go out there and pick them up. You can send some kids out to pick them up, or you can let the animals eat it, right? No harm, no foul, First few years, you're going to have to prune them properly. And then after that, you kind of let them go and let the wildlife take it, let the locals have it, send people in that hungry, steer them there, and do a lot of things with it, right? Right. There's certain fruits that carry over better than others. Fruits that have a very light, delicate taste, not going to carry over as well as fruits with a strong taste. Now, last week we talked about vacuum distillation, which is definitely an advanced technique, but you're definitely, in the future, you're going to see a lot more flavorful brandies coming out as a result of vacuum distillation and infusion. So, definitely something of the future that's coming. It's already been done for a while in gins, and we found out earlier or last week beers. I wasn't aware of that, but the beer industry's been doing it a while, and now a lot of gin and a lot of flavor in the lower temperature distillation. Of course, when you do vacuum distillation, you lower the boiling points, right? In a vacuum, the boiling point lowers. The more atmospheres negative that you get, the lower the boiling point gets, until you can literally boil water at 100 degrees at the right pressure, or vacuum. So that's going to be a very interesting thing. And then at those lower temperatures, a lot of flavor doesn't get lost. So that's going to be pretty interesting, the future in the brandy industry and the gin industry and tinctures as well. What still setup would I recommend for a first timer? I'm glad you asked. We get asked that a lot, and we can't get that asked often enough. A lot of people get frustrated. Oh, you're asked. Yep, and it's the same question they had when they, were getting started. So people don't realize that, and it's an awesome question, and one that doesn't get. I mean, I want it asked every week, so newcomers will see it, and you're going to have to bear with me, because on my new PC, I can't remember where in the hell I put that stuff. I thought it was right there. Oh, wait, I put it down here in D. Okay, put it in my storage drive. Okay, here we go. All right, so I'll start out with the bever. And I'm going to take this text away for just a second. I'm going to take your. So this is what we call a Vever football still. And as many people as I've influenced buying this, Vever should be sending me royalties. I can't say it enough. Unless you're going with a keg steel, that can be pretty cheap, and I'll show you that setup next. this is probably the best little setup you can get. You look at the pot, it's got the clasp coming down, probably one of the weakest parts of it. You got to make sure that those little pins are in on each side. Sometimes they get bent a little bit, but it's a decent little pot. It's light. You can see the little ring around it about 6 inches off the bottom. That's a false bottom that sits in here, and so if you wanted to use it for other things, you can, but you can use it for fermentation. It's got a little airlock on there, you'll see, and some valves on the lid, so you can ferment in it. After you ferment in it, you can't just distill it. You got to rack it out, clean it out, and then pour it back in there. But that football head is designed, it's a rectification head. You can see at the very top, it's got a valve, but it's just really not that great at rectification, but that's what the goal was. You can try to use a little bit for that, kind of a waste of time. I like the valve at the bottom a little better to get some tails off that accumulate in the bottom there. You'll see it right next to that little rubber airlock. At the bottom left of that football, you'll see that little valve sticking out there. I use that one a lot to drain out, but you can also take that football off, and that's a good little canister filter. But you can take that football off there, and you'll see that it's a tri-clamp setup. That's a 2.5-inch tri-clamp. So you'll probably have to go get an adapter to go from 2.5 to 2, or 2.5 to 3, or 2.5 to 4, depending on the size of this pot. The 18.5 gallons, I think, is the largest that they have. They used to do a 20, but they don't have that anymore. So 18.5 is the largest one that they have at this time that I've seen. But yeah, it's 220 to, I think lately it's been on sale for $205, $210, and everything you need's there. So it's got the little pump to pump your water into the bottom of the canister and out of the top back to your reservoir. It's got your little proofing hydrometer, got your little graduated cylinder. It's got a cap for the top, so you can just you can ferment in there. Again, it's got your pump, so you can pump your coolant into the canister, condenser. I probably said filter 5 times because I do canister filters on my fish tanks and stuff, but canister, condenser. But yeah, that little football head's great. It's kind of like a little whiskey head. And it's great for whiskeys and brandies and bourbons and that type of stuff and gins. Inside there's access through a 2.5-inch hole on the side there that connects to that canister condenser. And so you have some access to the inside. There's some screen in the bottom of that as well. So if you wanted to, you could put your little brew bag of botanicals in there to let the vapors pass over to pick up some botanical notes. So it works great for that. You can also put some copper inside there, copper mesh. A lot of people will pack, a bunch of copper mesh in there, not too tightly, but enough for the vapor to flow over, and that works quite well. So this is a really good setup for the beginner who just doesn't want to do anything at all. Now with the Vever 3-pot stills, they come with a little thumper, but the condenser is way undersized. The thumper is way undersized. It ends up being a slobber box or a peat pot, and it's just the gaskets on it, right? The little plastic. I don't know if they can call them Teflon. I'm not sure if they're PTFE or not, but the gaskets break on them quite readily and easily. So I don't recommend those. If you have those, it's not the end of the world, but I do recommend that you do increase the size of the copper lines coming off of it. Getting a lot of back pressure, because I've seen 10, 15 gallon Vever pots going into 1/2 inch or 3/8 inch, copper line. That's a lot of back pressure. So an inch, it would be the minimum. 5/8 to an inch, 3/4 to an inch is minimum. Half, it's very undersized. These 2.5, so you don't have that back pressure, as an issue. And it's a lot easier to regulate your temperatures. So that's called a Vever football still, about $200 some bucks, and you can go with that. Now, another thing that you can add to that is you can take off that little cap and you can put a little column on there. So you have this is a 2-inch, and it is a 2-inch tri clamp. You'll see that. They do have them in 1.5 inches. 2 inches is pretty standard, and that's what you want. Probably the same price for 1.5 inches, maybe a little more because they're not as common. But you get your little reducer, go from 2.5 coming out of that into this, and you can have the football for your whiskeys and your brandies and all this, and you can put this on there for your vodkas and your higher proof stuff, right? So you can run this deflagmator or deflamator. There's an argument on how that's pronounced. I've always heard it pronounced deflagmator. There is a G in there, whether it's silent or not, I don't know. But you can run it and create quite a bit of reflux. You got some copper in there to create some reflux with, and take out your sulfites. You got your deflamator or deflagmator, giving you some reflux, good reflux. You can regulate that by the temperature of the water going into the bottom, out through the top always. And then you got a condenser, pretty good size shotgun condenser there to the left. And these will cost anywhere. I think JJ said last week they were like $100 and some on sale somewhere, just a little over 100. But on the average, 130 to 160, 70, depending on the seller, But it's a good value. You add up the parts. If you bought the parts individually, you're probably going to be paying closer to 200, right? Or maybe a little bit more, depending on where you buy them. So those two paired together work really well. Now, I will say this also works really well on a keg, a beer keg, 15.5-gallon beer keg. Make sure it's stainless. Most all of them have been stainless since, I guess, the 80s or 90s. They used to have some aluminum, but they're very old, and you should know if you're seeing them, it's the difference. But these sit right on top of a keg. You'll have to have a special gasket that's flat on one side and ridged on the other. In this bottom cutaway, right underneath where it says this is a 2-inch clamp, please contact me if you need, you'll see a picture of a cutaway there. Now you see that wire going across that right there will prevent that copper. Once you pack it in that little spool, we call that a spool, and that keeps it from just going down into your pot, right? So that little thing right there will keep your loosely packed copper from sliding down into your pot. So that's kind of handy to have that. But you'll notice that also right there, that on these tri-clamps and on these spools, there's a little ridge all the way around, and the gasket fits into that ridge, and it's part of the sealing process. Well, on the top of a keg, you don't have that. It's flat. So the gasket that'll go in there will be flat on one side and have this ridge for this spool on the other side. So it's a specialized gasket. Phil Billy carries those. So if you need them, just get up with him and he can hook you up on that. I'm pretty sure he carries these columns too. And last time I was at his house, he has several beer kegs out there, so he can hook you up with a complete setup. What his cost is, I don't know. I do know that, you can get on Marketplace like we talked earlier about the wheat and stuff. If you're interested, I live in a college town. I can't find a freaking keg. Every time I get on there, it seems like, but Kentucky South is like, I'm not seeing them around me, and it's like, I just know there's got to be beer kegs around here, man, because there's so many fraternities and so many college parties and stuff. But no, every time I get on there, it's always Ohio or Tennessee or Indiana or somewhere, it's never here. Or at the other side of Kentucky, way, way, way off. I'd be easier to go to Ohio or Tennessee. But that would be, the alternative would be a keg. And they also make caps, Phil Billy and Wayne. I'm not even going to try to list them all. Most all of the builders these days make a cap that'll fit on a keg for a whiskey cap. So if you want to have something similar to the football, but more of a traditional copper, cap coming off there with a lint arm or a pipe coming off that, that's also readily available as well. Probably going to be the cheapest way to get into it. If you want to buy a copper pot, more power to you. They're pretty expensive. Copper's not cheap, and the manpower and the time and effort going into them isn't either. So I was sitting something made in China, at 2 cents an hour on labor. This is American workers that are trying to feed their families, right? So expect to pay more. But you're going to get a better product, but it's going to require a little more maintenance. because of the metal, copper, and like we talked earlier, the acid, you want to rinse them out after each use and keep them clean. And best way to keep them clean is to continue to use them. So if you use them and you dump it out, wash it out, and next day you're putting in another mash or immediately putting in another mash, you won't ever have to worry about keeping them clean because the process, it's self-cleaning, right? And you don't get that buildup of oxidation that you will if it sits idle. So all these big, huge distilleries that have these big copper pots, once or twice a year, if you're lucky, they'll shut down and go in there and literally climb inside of them and clean them out and rinse them out, and then they'll be ready to go again. But some of them have huge pots with little manholes, and you go inside and clean them. But yeah, keg or the little Bever football still. Don't recommend the 3-pot. They are cheap. You can get into them cheap. You can get you a 5 or 10 gallon rig for less than $100, $120. But you're going to have to do some work on it. I'm not saying all's lost. Those work perfectly fine, but you're going to have to, do some work on them, and you're going to have to get new gaskets. Philby's got gasket sets for them. Now, not the rubber gasket. That's not a problem for the lids, and it's impossible to find those. Everybody's tried, and you'd have to know somebody in China to get them. And if I ever do, I'm going to be rich because I'm going to find somebody that makes those damn gaskets, and I'll be the only one that'll have them, right? I'll make a fortune selling them. I might just finance me a little trip to go to China and find it. But that's your 2 best options. Hit that little football steel. I highly recommend that. Or keg. Beauty of a keg is it's a lot more durable. The drawback is you have to use the propane because you're not setting a keg on a oven because it just doesn't have that flat bottom, right? It's got that rim, and you got that air gap. So sit on a turkey fryer fine. You can get you a banjo burner and make your own stand. You can do like I do, just set up blocks, bricks, whatever, slide your burner in underneath it, lift it up with other bricks, and get your height adjusted that way. Put your little metal underneath it, whatever it takes to get your right height, and works fine. So kegs are great for that. Or you can weld in the ferrule. The ferrule is just the little part that the tri-clamps go to each other, how they clamp to each other. There's a little ring and a larger ring, and that's the one the gasket goes into. And you can, weld those into pipe or solder them into pipe. And you can also weld them into the sides of the Bever football steel or the sides of a keg and run electrical elements in it, or just run electric. A lot of people doing that. A lot of people. So, and it's a lot more convenient, a lot easier. You don't have to drag everything out. You don't have to worry about, running out of propane in the middle of the run and not having enough to finish it, run to the gas station or wherever and get it refilled, running back and having to heat it all back up again, which is fine if you do. It's not the end of the world. And if you want to rerun it, you can. That's one of the beauties of distilling. And if you don't scorch it, you can always do something to fix it. You can always, even if it tastes bad, you can, usually run it through a column and strip all the taste and just make a vodka out of it, right? And still get that alcohol. And then just mix it with something that tastes good, and you'd be good to go. How did old timers do it? No sugar, malt with malted grains. There's lots of sugars in corn, and it's in starch, complex starches, right? And to simplify those starches, you have to malt them, and the malting process creates or releases. It doesn't create; it releases a natural enzyme that's in that corn kernel or the grain kernel. And that natural enzyme is what breaks those starches down to simple sugars that the organism can use to create energy to create that root, that radical, if in like a corn kernel. All that energy is in the endosperm and is part of the reproduction process where it's sending that radical out, that root, to tap into the ground. Then it sends those caudal leaves up. And then once it gets the caudal leaves come up out of the ground, they start getting, photosynthesis. So that's where the energy comes from after that. But the original energy comes from within the sugars, the complex sugar conversion. So they have a natural endogenic alpha amylase and a beta glucanase inside these grains. And that will simplify naturally through the malting process, the growing process. It'll release these enzymes. So when we malt them, we want to stop that malting process immediately, right when that little radical fruit comes out, or foot comes out, because that's when it's at its maximum. The amylase content and the beta glucanase content's at its maximum, and there's not been a lot of sugars consumed to send that out yet. So we stop it right at that process. So we got still a lot of sugar and maximum amounts of that amylase and that beta glucanase. And then once we do that, we cook it, but it takes so much longer, because at certain temperatures, these natural endogenic enzymes will break down, right? So you can't get them over 150, 55 degrees when that alpha amylase will start breaking down. So you have to cook the corn to gelatinize it and to leach out all those starches for a very, 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 very long time at that temperature. Now, if we can boost the temperature up to 185, 95, cooking temps, we can gelatinize it 90 minutes to a couple of hours, right? But if we'd have to do it at 145, 50 to 55, it's going to take 10, 12 plus hours, right? It takes a long, long, long time, and it's a lot of energy. So if you're using propane, that's a lot of money in propane to cook it that long. If you're doing it on the stove, it's not so bad, but it's still a long, long time on the stove. Back then, they were using woods and coal, so they didn't have as much money in it. It's just back-breaking work, splitting the wood and right. So that was how it was done back then, through malting the grains and getting the sugars from the starches in the grains. And but then probably some of the best liquor made that way. Now, when sugar came out, and sugar's been out a long time, but when it became a lot less expensive, it used to be very cost prohibitive. Moonshiners couldn't just go out and buy, distillers and moonshiners couldn't just go out and buy a bunch of sugar because it was just too cost prohibitive. Hell, a bottle of liquor would be $200-300. It was because sugar was a commodity. It was very expensive when it first, popularity. But after they started finding it and growing it in, I guess, the islands and the Bahamas and around the Caribbean, and then they started growing it in Florida and other places, and definitely ramped up production so much that it just became dirt cheap at one point in time. And it's still relatively cheap now, but it used to be really cheap, right? And a lot of people started making their own cane sugar, sorghum, molasses, blackstrap. That made a lot of different different types of sugars based off these plants, and so it became a lot less expensive, and it was a lot easier to get that alcohol than to go through the long, laborious task of converting those, gelatinizing the corn over a long period of time. It took a long time. So now we have the benefit of being able to do an all grain with exogenic enzymes, which are enzymes that are sourced outside from other grains and other natural sources. Everybody thinks it's some chemical that some scientist is madly mixing acids and all this crazy stuff to make, and it's just a natural thing. A lot of it probably comes from sweet potato skins and a lot of other places, a lot of natural places that have high levels of it. So now we have the benefit of using that. So now we can cook our corn. We don't have to worry about malting it. We can malt it if we want to for flavor, but we still don't have to worry about the enzymes that are endogenic, right? So we can cook the shit out of it, gelatinize it really quickly, and throw in that high temp amylase at 185 and start breaking those sugars down, and throw in our beta glucanase or our glucoamylase anywhere from 145 to 100 degrees, depending on what you're using and where it was sourced. Temperatures will vary, so always refer to the temperatures on your exogenic enzymes that you use, because the temperatures are definitely going to vary considerably based on where that enzyme was sourced. We do have a chart here that shows, and I forgot to put the writing back up. I'll do that in a minute. I'm sorry. But we do have a chart here that shows, for saccharification, rest ranges, and it also talks about enzymes in the gray area that shows where your enzymes would be denatured. And it's about 80 centigrade, 170, looks like 175, 177 and change. I do know that a lot of alpha amylase will denature at about 155. I know the powder that I used to use, you had to use it at 155, 160, it'll denature. So this is probably just a little on the high side, in my opinion. A barley malt, the upper levels is generally the right barbell. So it looks like a little barbell. It's got a little ball at the left. That's the lower range. And to the right's the upper range. Of the rest, the range that you can add them and use them. But I think to the right is where you start denaturing, because in the barley malt, that is about 155 to the right. And that's when you start denaturing alpha enzymes in barley malt fat. So in the lower end of it's close to 145. So that's about the range that it's highest activity. You get a little cooler than that, and it's not as active and as effective, so you don't get as good a conversion. But again, these days we're worried less about that, because we have these exogenic enzymes that we can now use to break down those starches, so we can just use malted grains for their flavor and not have to worry about the limitations and temperature that we used to. So that means a lot more people are using 2-row barley instead of 6-row, because generally speaking, 2-row has better flavors than the 6-row, and the 6-row has generally been created as a distiller's malt, and it was used for its diastatic power, meaning its ability to convert a lot of those sugars and break them down into sugars that yeast can consume. So, but it was tough. Back in the old days, it was very, very time consuming, a long drawn out process of extracting. And it's amazing, the moonshiners had no idea the chemical processes that were taking place. Just through trial and error, they knew doing it this way was better. If you cooked it at too high temperature, it didn't make as much alcohol and it wasn't as good. If you cooked it at lower temperature, you got more alcohol. And if you got too low in temperature, you didn't get hardly any alcohol. And so they just basically trial and error through many, many decades their way into a best way to do it, right? And it was 10, 12 hours at 150, 55, no hotter. They didn't have thermometers in there. They just knew. And they just do trial and error, which is a lot of how I learned. So, but that was the process. What's going on, James? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, I would definitely recommend 10 or better. Nothing against the guys that have the 5s. It's great. It's good that you started out. You got to start, right? So, you got to start somewhere somehow. And if you didn't have us to ask, and you asked around, and somebody told you 5, and I'm sorry that they did, but they might have, and 5s for a lot of people is fine. They just want to do it for the hobby. Believe it or not, there's a lot of people that do this that don't even drink. I've got several friends that do it. They make it, they share it with their friends, and they don't drink. They just love the hobby and love making it and just enjoy doing it. Jim's one of them, buddy of mine. They don't drink a drop of it, but loves to do the process, loves to make it, and enjoys the science of it, and his buddies like it too. So it always helps to have thirsty friends. Two-inch inch on what? 2 inch coming off 15 gallon. That's fine. It's fine. 50 gallon. No, you're definitely going to want a little more, but I will say 2 inch off a 50 gallon steel is better than a 10-gallon steel with half-inch copper. Believe it or not, it's much, much better. So it's, there's good, better, best. And, but I do see a lot of half-inch copper coming off 20, 10, 20 gallon steels. That's not good. It's no bueno at all, man. There's a lot of back pressure, which all it means when you do create a lot of back pressure like that, James, is it's just harder to control your temperatures because you're dealing with pressure now as well. So when you increase the pressure, the temperature shoots up, right? We talked about that. So when you increase the pressure, like the vacuum distillation, when you increase the vacuum, the boiling points decrease and temperatures decrease, right? Well, when you increase the pressure, you go the opposite end of that. Everything goes the other way. So boiling points go up, temperatures go up, and it muddies your alcohol a lot, right? You get a lot of smearing, and people, you just can't run it low and slow enough for a pot that's got like half inch coming off a 10, 20 gallon pot. So it's all relative, but yeah, I mean, 2 inch off a 50, probably a little, definitely undersized, but it's much better than a half inch off a 10 or 20. So it's all relative. I mean, but there is also a point that you get where it's too large, right? So you got a 50 gallon steel going into a 12-inch, column. That's just too big, right? You're not going to get any vapor velocity, and it's going to have to work real hard to push that through a worm. You're going to have to step it down to get some compression to push it through a worm, unless you can't go 12 inches the whole way, So there is a time when you have to increase and create vapor velocity. That's why they have the frustums coming off the shape that's kind of a inverted cone. It's called a frustum, Frustum, I think it's spelled, and it's just a geometric shape, and it's the cap coming off your traditional whiskey stills, and that creates some passive reflux, and at the same time it's going from small to large, so it's lowering the pressure, and then you got the limb arm that's a cone coming from large tapering down to small. So when you force that through that cone, you're accelerating it, right? You're pushing it from large to small, so it's picking up speed, and that gives it a good velocity to push it through the worm at a specific rate to get a dwell time that will allow for proper condensation and exposure to the copper to remove sulfates and all that good stuff. Yeah, and that's a good point, Chris. I'm glad you brought it up. So if you did get a 5 and you think, oh man, I can't believe I wasted my money on this. I should have listened. I should have, checked with these guys and should. Again, it's not all lost. So you're learning. It's really tough to make cuts on those 5-gallon steels though, because it's really, really tough because there's not a lot coming out to begin with. And it's really difficult because you have less margin of error, because when you have more product coming out, you have a little more margin of error. But yeah, when you finally do get a larger steel, and you probably will, when you step up to like a 15-gallon keg or 18.5-gallon bever, or even get a 20 or 30-gallon copper steel, you can always use that 5-gallon for a thumper, and convert it over and make a thumper out of it. So it's not all lost. How do you make everyone mind their own business? Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, there's a lot of haters out there, James. It's just the sign of the times. Running in the woods, it's different these days. Jay, in Kentucky, it's different because there's so many things in the world that are going on that are of a much more concern than somebody running them a little bit of alcohol in their home for their own use, right? Now, if you got a 200-gallon still and you're selling it to a bunch of people and a lot of people are finding out about it, then it's going to be a little riskier. They might find it worth their time to come and say something. It's not like you got a meth lab going or anything, but they still, pay you a little visit and say, you need to stop what you're doing. If they're going to be nice about it, they may just take you in and first time, most places it's I don't know, class A misdemeanor. And I guess it could be a class D felony. I don't know. In certain areas, some places they treat you differently. But yeah, there are a lot of haters though. It's just the day and time, man. I think the internet a lot's to blame. You get a lot of people behind these keyboards. They don't look at you face to face. They feel anonymous. They don't realize how easy you are to look up and find, so they feel safe and they feel like they can just say anything to anybody and just, a lot of them get called out on it. A lot of people will look them up, roll up and find out who you are, and they'll go to your business and say, do you realize that this is what your employee is saying on the internet and doing, and the way they're talking to people? Is this the kind of person you want representing you? They'll get them fired. Or even worse, they may lick them up, kick their ass, or even worse, So there's a lot of crazy shit going on these days, and you never know, who you're going to piss off, running your mouth if you're one of those that do that. So be careful. One of these days you may piss off some hillbilly that's going to look you up, and you don't want that. Yeah, I do too, James. That works out real well. When you got all stainless, it's cheaper to buy the stainless and then pack it with copper, but we didn't always know that. And we didn't always have that copper mesh. So, it's always been around, but nobody really thought about it or did it. Most people just hammered out a copper steel because copper wasn't too damn expensive then, what they made pennies out of, right? It's always been cheap. It's in wire. It's just everywhere. But now it's getting pretty expensive. It's a little rarer to find, harder to find. And so, people are starting to go with a stainless because it's a little bit cheaper to have somebody in China at 2 cents an hour stamp one out for you than it is to buy, $300 or $400 sheet of copper and hammer one out. So, but yep. Yeah, that's very common. And with 3 gallon, you can make an infuser with it. If you go big, real big, it won't even, it'd be undersized for a thumper. So it if you go with a 20, it might become an infuser. So put your little drain in the bottom of it, put your port in the top with a valve so you can just infuse into it, and that'll work as well. 5 gallons, like I say, it's a great place to start. It gets your feet wet, but it's just so tough to make cuts off a small steel like that. I mean, once you learn to make good cuts on a small steel, man, once you graduate to bigger steels, man, it's no problem at all. It was like, wow, and once you get properly sized pipe coming off too, helps a lot. Like we talked with pressure. See, a lot of people don't understand the relationship of pressure and temperature and boiling points and azeotropes. And I see it a lot. I see it in comments every day. And there's a lot of people out there that profess to know a lot that don't know shit. And, you get these people, yeah, I start my steel at 173 or 174 degrees, and I cook off all those heads and foreshots first, and then and then all of a sudden the methanol comes off at 173.1, and they're lies. They've never distilled a day in their life. That's just not how it works. It doesn't happen like that. At 173.1 degrees, which is the boiling point of ethanol, when you've got water and all kinds of other alcohols and everything else, other azeotropes mixed into it, nothing happens. Nothing happens, right? Let me show you a little chart here. Let's see. Here we go. Here's a boiling point chart. And I forgot to put the words up again. But now, if you go to on the left side's temperature, boiling point of ethanol, Fahrenheit, 173.1. All right, look at 173.1 on there. About halfway between 175 and 70. Now go to the right. You have to be pretty much 99, 98%. That's 190 proof, 198 proof, almost 200 proof, which is tough to do with atmosphere, right? You have to do that in a vacuum because once it touches air, it starts hygroscopically drawing water out of the atmosphere. That's what pure alcohol does. Pure ethanol, if you open up the jar, it'll cut itself out. It's not just evaporating, it's actually literally drawing water out of the air and putting it into the alcohol, right? It's hygroscopic. So you would have to have pure alcohol to boil off at 173.1 degrees because that is the boiling point of pure ethanol. But once you add alcohol with water, alcohol with other alcohols, methanol, polypropanol, isopropyls, there's lots of different alcohols that are mixed with this, esters, polyesters, there's lots of mini esters and acetaldehydes and acetyls. There's just so many other compounds in here that are also azeotrope that affects this boiling point, right? Nothing boils off at that. Now, look at this bottom row again. 10, go to 10. That's 20 proof, right? 10% alcohol, that's 20 proof. So that's pretty much as our yeast is going to work at, right? 18%. So between 10, 20 there. So basically you're going to be 190 before anything happens, before anything comes off. Now, because you're warming something up, you may see smoke on the water or a little fog coming up, just like a warm lake on a cool day. And that's just because you have cool air touching a warm liquid, right? That's not actually anything boiling off. It's not, the lake isn't boiling when it creates fog, right? So that's what's happening there. You have cool air touching a warm, moist substance. So you're getting just a little bit of water and fog coming off of it. That's not anything evaporating off or boiling off. Now, at the bottom of the pot, where it comes into contact with the gas or the burner or whatever your source of heat is, you'll see some bubbling going on there because right there at that very point where the metal touches the very bottom part of the alcohol, that's much, much warmer than the alcohol on the top, right? So it's going to be hot there. So you might start see some bubbling and you'll think, oh, well, it's only 175 degrees or 180 degrees. Old Santa's wrong because I'm getting bubbling coming off here. I'm getting stuff. That's because at the very bottom, it's 190 already, right? So unless you're stirring it constantly, yeah, you're going to have a hot plate at the very bottom next to the bottom of the steel. That's going to be 190 degrees, while up top is still 180s, So you'll see something coming off then because it's actually reached that boiling point of 190 plus. Most of your distillations are going to start bubbling off at 193 to 196 in that range, between 10 and 20, depending on where your mash is. Now, if you add tails, then yes, you can start getting some action going in the high 180s, right? And mid 180s if you have a lot of tails in there, but we never want to go over 40, right? And that's 182.5. And that's 80 proof. So that's that 40. So we never want to go into the pot with anything more concentrated than that, right? Because you start running into risks. So at the very minimum, even if you have a lot of tails or you're running pretty much 80 proof alcohol, that's still going to take 182.5. So all these people are saying they cook theirs off at 160, 75, and they cook all methanol off at 160 because its boiling point's 143. And then I cook off all the ethanol at 173.1 because that's its boiling point. They just read that on the internet and they've never run a drop of liquor in their life, or they're just stupid, or very misinformed. So, and I've had a lot of people that were members of the science community that tried to convince me different. And once we talked about azeotropes, they shut up, logged off, and I never heard from them again. So, yeah, a lot of people out there professing a lot that have no clue. So don't listen to them. And there's a lot of bad advice, and I see it on a lot of these groups, especially the larger ones. I mean, you can look at the posts that made this past week, and you'll see at least half a dozen to a dozen people making the same claims I just said, that they cook all their liquor off at 173.1, 174 degrees, and then they just, fractionally distill it just like it. It's bullshit. They're liars. They've never made it in their life. They don't know what they're talking about. So I will remember to put the text back up there so you don't see it. Yeah, and that's why I recommend never get less than 10, because inevitably the second they get into it, and if they get somebody and learn and have the stick to itiveness and learn on their own, and just, are stubborn like I was, or they seek good, proper help, and they get good help from somebody and make it enjoyable. Because that's the biggest problem. A lot of people find out it's a lot more work than they thought it was, because it's not. It can be easy, but doing it really good and making a really good product with a multi-grain and doing an all grain is going to be quite a bit more time consuming and difficult than making a sugar shine. And there's a reward of a better product if you go to the extra steps. It's worth the time. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with the sugar shine either. So I'm definitely made quite a few. Well, I mean, it's just, you got into the hobby, you enjoy it, you have a 10 gallon or a 5 gallon now that you can use the thumper. When you get a 20 gallon, I always recommend 15 to 20, and that's a good size. And if it's easy to make, man, working with copper is not difficult. Soldering it is not that difficult. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's not going to be, it's not going to look like an Ace. It's not going to look like a North Georgia. It's not going to look like, a Phil Billy or some of these other guys that crank out just beautiful steels that are polished and bead rolled and, fancy with the, manhole covers and all this other, it's not going to look like that. So don't load yourself down with those expectations unless you're very handy. But at the same time, or Wayne at Ozark, and now I'm gonna have to name everyone because I don't want to leave anybody out. Appalachian, I don't want to leave James Way Hall, anybody. Anyway, that's what happens when you start name dropping. You got to name everybody, or everybody, think, oh, you named everybody but me, and I'm like, man, it's just, I could just sit and name the whole show, but you get my point. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just doesn't. You don't want it to leak, so. You can get a sheet of copper pretty cheap if you check out a lot of these gutter supply stores and stuff. It doesn't have to be a big, huge sheet to make a 20 gallon still. I think with a 3x10 sheet, and I think that's what it comes, 3x10 or 3x11, 3x10 or 11. I think it's 3x10. I've got one in there. I think you can hammer out like maybe a 40 or 50 with that. Good size steel for that sheet of copper. So, you may have to look at some patterns and learn to bend it and crimp it, get your pliers, make sure it doesn't have real sharp edges on it. If it does, grind your edges off and round those so you don't split it. There's certain things you can do, read up, but yeah, you can make a submarine. I don't particularly like the submarine pots. Those were pretty much made with sheet metal back in the day, just cheap old sheet metal and wood. It was a huge vessel that you could use, and you wouldn't have a lot of money invested, and you could just pull the copper caps off of them and run. and which a lot of times they did, and just leave that old sheet metal pile of wood behind, because that really didn't cost anything. Same thing with the 55-gallon drums, or 50-gallon drums. You saw a lot of back in the old days. There was a shitload of stills made with oil drums, and those weren't very good either, because what they had in them before they were made. But again, they'd grab them copper tops and just leave the rest behind. Welcome back, JJ. Yeah, and two, when you have a 10-gallon still and you distill it and you get, maybe 2.5, a gallon or a couple gallons out of it, and you want to rerun it, you can, add enough to proof it down below 80, and you'll have 4 gallons, maybe 3.5, 4 gallons. That's perfectly fine to run that second run in that smaller still, right? So having a little bit smaller still it's not bad, especially once you want to do those second runs. But make sure that you don't have, half inch coming off a 10 or 20 gallon. You don't want that. There you go, hillbilly in China. Damn it, we need to do that, don't we? Yeah, a lot of people love electric. I've only heard of one or two that went electric and didn't like it. I think Wayne might be one of them. There's a few that just didn't really care for it. They went back to propane, but most of the people I know that went to electric have pretty much love it because it's convenience. I don't think it makes a tastier product, but it is very convenient, and it's a lot less expensive once you get your equipment. So there's initial cost, but if you use it enough, it will definitely benefit you over time, because propane's expensive. You got you a good one then. Yeah, and exactly. Especially the rubber gaskets too. I've seen they the worst part about the steel is, and especially the Bevers too, they're very guilty of it. They don't come with a lot of instructions, right? And a lot of people didn't know to fit that rubber gasket into the lid, right? They tried to split it and put it on the pot and then put the lid on the pot and go that route. So a lot of them ruined their gasket from the very get-go by putting the split in it and then setting it down under the pot and then forcing that lid down on it. That's not the way it was intended. You have to stretch it to make it fit in the lid so it fits tightly, and that's the way you want to do it. So maybe I think Philbilly might have video on that. If not, we can do one. I guess I could pull my gasket out and show everybody and how to properly fit it in, because there is a kind of a flat side and then a rounded side, and there's a small side and a larger side, and exactly how those go in. There's not much instructions on those, so probably be a good idea. Yeah, that football still is the way to go, brother. Yes, sir. 18.5 gallons, man. You can run 15 easy in it, not worry. It's a heck of a setup for a couple $100. It's definitely the way to go. Or a keg. Both work well, but with a keg, you're going to have to, invest in a column or a head, and it's just not a one-time purchase and you're ready to go. You're going to have to get your beer keg. Or you go to Philbilly or one of these other builders, Wayne, somebody. A lot of people will hook you up with a keg and a cap and a heartbeat. Got a little moth flying around here. The moth man. But yeah, there's a lot of people that can hook you up with a keg and a column or a cap, and those work great. And two, it kind of disguises itself. It's camouflage. You see just a beer keg sitting in the corner. It's a beer keg, right? Everybody looks at it. They associate it with a beer. They don't think moonshine. There's a moonshine still. They think there's a beer keg. They see a little football still over there. Like, that's an awful odd looking pot. Kind of resembles a moonshine still or something. That doesn't look like anything. But what it is. But yeah, those work quite well. And you can also have the stainless steel milk can type setups that work well too. So there are lots of different ways. Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, old Clint's smart cookie too. I got some good helpers in here, man. Some people that are learning. Yes, sir. You certainly do. That's what you do, bro. Yeah, you can literally buy cornstarch, just the powdered cornstarch, and use amylase and convert that. That's literally what you're doing. That's just chemically removing the starch from the corn, drying it out, grinding it, drying it out. And starch is just an endosperm, basically. It's just the yeah. People are like, oh my god, I'm eating endosperm. That's what corn is. So the juices of it. So, but that's just basically to take it out, grind it, dry it, and take that starch, and that's cornstarch, right? Um, I'm pretty sure Moonshine Shua did a lot of that. He did a lot of cornstarch and dextrose, and he used a lot of dextrose and did some cornstarch experiments with cornstarch. Works quite well, but it's cheap and easy just to buy you corn and grind it. You get better flavor, and you're going to get better liquor. Yeah, so just get the yellow dent, and that's the place to start. Don't start with heirlooms and get all fancy. Start with the cheap yellow dent. It's cheaper than buying sugar. Buying big bag, well, unless you're overpaying for your corn, but if you're paying, $7 to $12 for a 50-pound bag, which is about the average, and you grind it, got a decent little grinder or a little hand crank grind mill, something to grind it down properly, and you invest in some high temp amylase. Again, North Georgia, Fieldbilly, Prohibition, lots of people sell it. Firm Solutions, wherever you want to get it, all fine. Great products from all. But using those with just regular old yellow dent, man, is cheaper than buying 70 cents per pound sugar. And that's usually beet sugar these days when you get it for 70 cents a pound. Most of your cane sugar is now $1 or more. So, yeah, you can get good, cheap sugar. And right, 18.5-gallon brew kettle that you can boil, have a shrimp boil with your friends, because it has the false bottom. So you could, you don't have to worry about your shrimp and your bouillabaisse and all your sausage getting on the bottom and getting burnt, because it's got that little false bottom you can point in there. So it boils your shrimp up, and you do shrimp boils and gumbo boils, and you can use it for a lot of things. Another thing that you can do, if you look right next to this graduated cylinder in the bottom right hand side, that little silver cap, that's an end piece, right? That's the end piece right next to that rubber tubing, between the rubber tubing and the graduated cylinder. That right there is a metal cap. Now you remove that football, and you put that little metal cap on it, and it will seal off your pot, right? So it makes it. Now you can drill and tap that. And have you ever seen a pressure cooker? With a little weight thing that goes around, you could drill it and tap it and screw you one of those little pressure cooker weights in there that spins around and releases steam. And you can literally make you a pressure canner out of this. With that false bottom, you can literally, and I've done it, you can make you a little pressure canner out of it. And you can take these little valves, these little red valves, go all the way through, and you could do your little bulkhead fitting to put your little pressure gauge on there to watch your pressure. And then you can adjust the weight from 3 to 5 to 15, from 5, 10, 15 PSI for your pressure canner or pressure cooker. And it's just for canning vegetables and making you jams and jellies. That damn moth. And it's good for that. It's about shot time. And it's also time for me to try to share these again if they're going to let me. We'll see. They should. It's been plenty of time now. If not, I'm going to have to get on there and do a little complaining to them. Yeah, it's going to let me. So let me go ahead and share these rest out. And I'm sorry for the people that are just getting these. If you want to, yell at Facebook and say you need to let old bad Santa post all he wants to, so he can post to my group. And if you own these groups that I'm posting to, and you hate that it's taking so damn long for me to get these links put on there, let Facebook know. It's why are you cutting old Santa back? He's helping the community. He's making it safe for people. I'm trying to make the hobby safe and enjoyable, and I'm not hurting anybody. And we don't use hate speech in here. We don't talk about politics and all that crazy stuff in here and get everybody worked up like all the other groups do. We try to stick to the topic. Every once in a while we get off topic a little bit, but um, usually the only time I talk about politics is when I talk about the laws and alcohol laws and constitutionally how we should have our pursuit of happiness in making our own whiskey, just like it is for beer and wine. We should be able to do the whiskey, and a lot of them say, "Oh, it's a safety thing," and it's not about safety. It's about taxes. It has nothing to do with safety. And if it did, all they have to do was just require you to take a class, right, and pass a little test or something to do it safely. But for those of you tuning in late, I do want to reiterate this year at Farm to Bottle, we're going to have a pretty good little Mary Cutter is going to be singing. She's sang that moonshine song, Devil's Money, and a lot of other good songs. Some of her stuff gets a little political, talking about pharmaceutical, big pharma, and all that stuff. Kind of made me think about it, but yeah, we try not to get too political unless it has to do with the topic. But every once in a while, somebody get a little off topic. What's going on, Foxtrot? I'm doing good, brother. How about yourself, man? I'm sorry I'm so far behind. Yeah, I'm way behind. I'm about half hour behind now. I get a little long-winded and talk, but hopefully y'all get something out of it. There's Mr. Shadow. It is fast whistle wetting time. I got the rest of my shares out. Thanks, Facebook. Do better. Let me share them all at once. There's not that many. Yeah, I mean, I agree. You get anytime you talk about politics, half the people agree with you, and half the people are pissed off at you for thinking differently than they do. And what good comes from that? Because you're not going to convince nobody. Right? This day and time, we all pretty stubborn. We're headstrong. We got our opinions set. And how many people have you ever talked to talking about religion? Hello, Miss Tammy. Talking about politics. And they said, you're right. I think I'm going to change. Nobody says that, right? Nobody says, you're right. I'm going to go register the other party. It just never happens, right? I guess that's the dream everybody has. You can convince somebody that they're wrong. Everybody's got their thoughts, and they're welcome to them, and they're welcome to debate them. But nobody debates anymore, man. It's just it gets too crazy. So I love just talking about the shine, and if we do get political, it's about laws against it and regulations and how we need to change those things. Yeah, sugar's ration, man. It used to be a big thing. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to show some pictures and I forgot to put the text back up. Yeah, a lot of our table sugar comes from beets, and it's just I need a wine chart. All right, brother. Let me know what you need, and if I don't, I've got shitloads of them, and I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for, but I think I know. Let me see if I got what you're looking for here. Is this one you're talking about? Why the hell didn't it pop up there? There we go. Damn, that's slow. It usually don't take that long to pop up. Again, let me move this text out of the way. This is what you're talking about, how much fruit per 100 grams, how much sugar per 100 grams of these fruits. This is used a lot in the wine industry to determine how much fruit you're going to need. This is basically just telling you how much sugar is in 100 grams of this fruit. So if you take 100 grams of bananas you're going to average. Now, this is an average. Now, like apples. Let's just slide down here and get to apples 13.3. Now, if you take a Granny Smith, a green apple, that's sour apple, that ain't going to be 13.3. You get the sweetest of the sweetest apples, it's probably going to be higher than 13.3. So this is probably an average for your typical, fruit. So take it with a grain of salt. It's just a chart, but it gives you a good idea of how much product you're going to need to make a pure brandy or a good wine, and how much sugar. For a lot of people, how much sugar am I going to need? You look at lemon and avocado and lime, there's hardly any. Then look at strawberries. See, that's the kicker out there at strawberries. Everybody thinks strawberries are sweet, man. And when I first did strawberry wine, I kept having to add more and more sugar because I did a lot of strawberries and they wasn't cheap. And I kept doing more and more. And it's like, man, how am I going to get this gravity up? So I just had to add a lot of sugar, and it made it hot. And that's why strawberry, shine. And it's a little on the hot side because ain't no damn sugars in it. You have to add a lot of sugar, which means it's going to be a little on the hot side. It's got less sugar than a damn grapefruit. But I did make some really good strawberry champagne. It's very strong strawberry flavor, but it's dry as the Mojave. It make your mouth pucker, but it's bubbly and strong strawberry flavor, but just no sugar at all. Very dry. And man, I got some gals that love that shit. Can't make enough of it for them. They trade me. They save wine bottles for me, and I give them those in exchange for cases of wine bottles. It saves me a lot of money. Them bottles ain't cheap. But yeah, it gives you a good idea. James, I'm sorry. I probably got this out to you late, and I'll try to look you up, brother, and see if I can't get you this chart. It's on the DIY Shine and Steel Building page, and also in the Militia page, in the file section. I put it in both. So, but it even tells you some of the dried fruit concentrations of sugar, and in some of the vegetables over here, carrots and tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers. And believe it or not, I guess you could make you some pepper shine or tomato shine or carrot shine if you wanted to add some sugar to it. I'm sure it's been tried. And I'm not going to forget to put that text back up there. All right. Now you're talking about high temp amylase. It'll tell you on the package. I'm sure every pack. Now I know that Firm Solutions has different concentrations. So in other places it's concentrated differently. So always refer to your packaging on temperatures and dosage. Always. And sometimes you can kind of underdose it because I know a lot of times they'll tell you to use a little bit more than you need. So you'll be buying your product a little sooner than you need. But I'm pretty sure he's talking about high temp. Yeah, it's a great group of people, man. We do, and they're in DIY Shine and Steel Building both. We don't put up with any assholes coming in there browbeating them or bad mouthing people. We'll give them a warning, and after that, we'll beat them. And it doesn't matter who it is. If you're admin, moderator, all the way down to somebody new. If you come in there and run your mouth and start causing problems and drama, you go. We don't put up with it. That's the reason the group was started. Literally, the reason the Moonshine Militia was started, because the group that we used to go to a lot of us started at. I'm not going to name any names, and I'm not going to say anything because they had a business to run, and they couldn't just start booting people that were potential customers, right? So, you have to kind of, and they're building steels. They don't have time to moderate every comment made in the group. And, every time somebody said something smart aleck, we're all grown men, they get over it, was their thought. And, and they're not going to piss off any potential customers. So you have to understand that. But it got to the point where, somebody coming in, and this is one of the whole reasons I do what I do, is people, all the questions are simple questions, and everybody has the same basic questions when they start out. And there's no stupid questions. And everybody has the same ones. Some people may have some unique questions. O'Sheen's one of them. You've had some unique questions that most beginners don't ask, but you've gone down the rabbit hole, right? But yeah, that's the whole reason we started the militia, is to get away from that kind of shit, and we don't put up with it. So if somebody browbeats you or gives you shit, they're going to be removed. And they're supposed to be removed. They'll be warned. And if it happens a couple times, no matter who it is, they'll be removed. Yeah, they got to have that tax dollars, and they don't make that much. They waste so much more than what would even dream coming from, an average moonshiner, if they actually paid their hobby tax or whatever. I mean, technically, you can do the hobby, and if you sell it, you can technically pay taxes on it. And if you ever to get caught, tax evasion wouldn't be one of the charges they could throw up against you. You say, well, I called it my hobby A, and I never really got into detail about what my hobby was. And here's my hobby income, and I paid taxes on my hobby income. So you can't get me for tax evasion. You're just going to have to get me for, making alcohol. And it's a lot less. And if you can prove that and have the documentation, going to be a lot less trouble. But at the same time, that same documentation is evidence too. So. Hello, Miss Tammy. Hope you're doing well. Always. Adding salt to your mash, that's gonna be an issue for your yeast. Once you've reached the end of fermentation, that's when you can do the separation. But don't do it during, right? Or you're definitely gonna get some off flavors. But I think that type of removal and that type of process is more of a commercial process, not so much in the drinking industry. It's just a separation, a way of separating ethanol for more commercial purposes. But there may be some distilleries out there that are doing it. I don't know. I think fractional distillation would be a lot more advantageous for them. Yep, that's the sweet spot, 195.6, and then of course when you start getting into tails, you'll see the temp go up automatically. You won't change anything. The temp will start automatically going up. Why? There's less alcohol, more water. The boiling point's increasing because you're getting further to this side of the slope, and it's going to take, and it's a higher boiling point. So the temperatures will naturally start to inch up. And once you get into the tails, you can crank your temperature up a little bit more and strip them off, because you're not going to keep them for this run. You're going to use them for the next one. Just don't scorch anything, and strip them off there and add it to your thumper or to your next pot to distill. That's right. And some people don't. Some people are settlers. They'll settle for mediocre, and it's just fine. They don't have to, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with, hey, it's good. It's plenty good enough for me. I can drink this all day, every day. I don't need any better. I'm happy with where it's at. I don't need to know anything else. I'm not interested in any other different beverages, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either. There's all different schools of mindsets. Yeah, you tardy, man. You very tardy. We were talking about you earlier. Was your ears burning? Oh, Lord, I'm 30 minutes behind. Yeah, everybody. I've not talked to many people propane to get it. Yeah, I've seen some people that do both. They'll use their electric and propane to warm it up. Once they get to the certain temperature, they shut the propane off. Just want to make sure that you put something there to kind of block the heat from any wires going into your element. But I know quite a few people that do that and have quite a bit of success because it takes quite a bit longer to heat up with just an element. So a lot of people want to use like a 2,500 watt element, right? And they don't want to go 220, and it takes a long time to heat up. But once you get it to temp, it can maintain it quite easily. So they use propane to get it heated up. They use 120 element. And how many amps is that? Yeah, 20 amps. So, that's about the limits for 120. But yeah, and you dial it down a little bit. You don't crank it all the way up, and it's fine. But yeah, a lot of people do that. And that's a good way to get it going quicker. It's all right. Most people don't watch this live anyway. I mean, we love all the live viewers we can get, but we get so many, maybe eight. I figured calculated on the average about 8% of the people that watch this show watch it live. And the majority of them will watch it either on Facebook or YouTube. And by the end of the week, we'll have thousands of views, right, on both. So, yeah. It's amazing. Yeah, most people don't, and a lot of people that do, they don't speak up. And but that's okay. We're glad to have you here. Sorry about your YouTube crash. Now I've had a little bit of problem with my new computer crashing a little bit on me lately. Hopefully I've got that figured out. Hey, we appreciate you having you here for sure, brother. That's what we're here for. And I learned a lot of new stuff too, So we're all learning. Yeah, you got to get it, Ocean. You need it already, man. And you can go back and watch it, and it also shows me how many people watch it and then how many total views. So how many viewers and then total views. So we get quite a few, maybe a third of the total viewership watch it again, right? So they'll think, oh, this is cool. Yeah, I would definitely want to catch the rest of this sometime, or I need to watch this over. I started late and I want to get some more of this information. This is great. It's what I've been looking for, because for a lot of people it is, there's not anybody else doing what we do, and that's why I started this, because it's there's lots of videos and how tos out there. There's lots of groups that you can ask, and you can wait an hour or two, and you can get 15 different answers, some of which will be correct, some of them will be incorrect, and then some of them will be opinions, and they'll all be somewhat correct. If it's an opinion, you there's no right or wrong. It's just sometimes good, better, best. Again, practice. But yeah, that's if China, man. They might not let me go if I go over there, man. Because I'm definitely gonna break some of their laws. If I go there, I'm definitely breaking some of their laws. They're pretty strict over there. What's going on, Tyler? Hey, good to see you, brother. And yes, I am 20 minutes behind. Catching up a little bit. Yeah, the average person's an idiot. That's one thing I've learned. Man, the internet is definitely exposed that. And we man, I see so many of them in these groups posting stupid stuff. It tears me up. You didn't make the banana vinegar? Uh-oh. Yeah, you can always reduce it, and you can dry it, freeze dry it and use it for, in infusions and things. Um, but yeah, you can reduce it like we talked about doing that for watermelon, like they do tree sap since it's so watery. You could boil off a lot of that water like you would a tree sap and get a more concentrated. And that's basically the way they make the fruit concentrates. They just kind of remove the water through either dehydration or boiling it off or a little bit of both, or, but yeah, definitely could increase their fruit or their sweetness and sugar content. I like using concentrates and stuff, in wines and stuff. It definitely adds a lot of flavor because I definitely have to cheat. A lot of times it's just too expensive to buy, all that fruit and have it 100% fruit. It gets very expensive. Yeah, they're tough, man. I tell you, the strawberries, they just don't have it, man. I mean, there's a lot of fruit. It's shocking. You'd think it has less sugar than a grapefruit, man. It's just I was shocked when I saw that, Tom. It's amazing. But yeah, I've tested it, and they're not as sweet as there's a reason people dip them in sugar, right, to eat them. But cherries, even, next to a tangerine, very close. You'd think cherries were sweeter, and they're tart. But again, too, there are probably varieties that have more sugar content than others for sure, especially like in cherries and peaches and apples. 100%, you're going to get a lot of different um, sugar contents. Even in some of the watermelons, I did the watermelon wine and everything with. Definitely going to see some differences in the sugar contents in those. I will say the dark, small, seedless, round ones tend to have, for me, had more sugar content than the seeded, old variegated, old school type. So, but yeah, I was really surprised that with the strawberries, I thought it'd be quite a bit sweeter, and I just kept adding sugar and sugar. It's like, wow. Yeah, I'm gonna have to read up more on the vinegar making. How can you get into the group? Okay, first things first, go to Facebook and look up DIY Shine and Steel Building, and you can join that and just answer the questions so we know you're not an Autobot just trying to come in there and spam shit. So just answer a couple of questions. There's no right or wrong. Just answer them so we know it's a human that's that's answering them and not some automated thing like we get a lot on Facebook. And go to the Moonshine Militia and just tell them that you're from Santa's podcast and that you want to join and that you want to learn and answer the questions there as well. And I will say again, and I hate plugging it, but here is a page, and I'll plug it. I'm going to cut off here in a little bit before we go. But here's a page. This is the Distilling 101 podcast page. Now, this isn't a page where we ask questions or do anything at all. This is just the podcast page that I cast from. And the more members that are followers I can get in here, just jump in there and hit the follow button. Again, this isn't a place to have conversations, so don't post in there anything. It's not that type of group. It's just for my podcasting, so you can see some of the past podcast, and you'll get notifications. That's one of the best part about it. You will get a notification anytime that we do a live podcast, but it will help me with my shares. So once I get over 500, I will be able to share to more. because it steps up in group size and they allow more sharing. So I'm told. So hopefully that will help that. But the other page, let me pull that up for you as well. And this page is the DIY. Well, I'm gonna let that link sit out there a minute, and then I'll post the other one for you, Paul. All right. Now this one is, hopefully there's some comments in between those so people don't get them confused with each other. There were. Okay, good. This one is for DIY shine and steel building. So both are. The first one is just for the podcast. Just follow it. You'll get notifications when we do live. It's not a thing for communication at all. So not a place to answer questions. Nobody will answer your questions there. It's just a page to follow for the podcast itself. But the other one is for all your questions. So any questions that you have, jump in there. We'll take care of it. I think let me take care of something real quick. Interesting. I had some. And there's a few people that advertise stuff on there as well. We got some that do some education and stuff. I mean, they're friends, and if you want to do some class work, you can go see Amanda. I think Alan Bishop's going to do some class work. I know Sean Rigsby was on Master Distiller, does some kind of online education things where you just do basically go online and learn from. I'm not sure how that works, but there's several different ways. If you don't want to get it here, there's several different places that you can get it. But of course, I always recommend everybody just ask questions in the group, and you have some pretty experienced people helping you. Exactly. Yeah. And everything's got an angle. Everybody's got an agenda. The media's got so many angles, whether it's one side or the other. It's always slanted and angled and presented in a way that is kind of misleading. It's just so much propaganda on both sides. It's just too much. Now in New Zealand, beautiful place, man. Beautiful country. You funny, brother. How did I get back? I must have scrolled back. Brother, okay, Paul, we're on here every Tuesday, 8 Central, and every Saturday, 8 Central. You can look up Philbilly Moonshine on YouTube. Since you're on YouTube, I guess that's probably where you found us. All our old videos are on there, so you can go back and listen to it. A lot of questions will be repetitive, so you can, and it's the same questions a lot of beginners have. So, yeah, listen to some of our past podcasts and join us for future ones and ask any questions that you got. There's no stupid questions here, and we'll try our best to answer them. When I get to them, I'm always a little bit behind, but I'll always try to get to them, or Clint will, and we'll get your questions answered and hopefully to your satisfaction. If not, you still have a question, don't be afraid to say, I don't understand. Could you explain it a little better for me? Because sometimes I assume people understand certain things that they may not, and I don't know what levels they are when I'm answering a question. They may ask a kind of a complex question, and I assume when they ask complex questions that they're, already have a pretty well based knowledge of it, and kind of find out they're a beginner asking a complex question. So I never know. So if I don't explain it to your satisfaction, just ask again and say, damn it, I don't understand the word you're saying. Could you put that in English, or could you, break that down for me, or whatever? And yeah, do. Yeah, yeah, it's most people, once they go electric, because of the cost, convenience, and you don't have to move anything, right? You don't have to lift your steel up, slide the, put it on the turkey fryer, or put it over the, it can stay right where it is. You run the extension cord to it, it just stays there, right? You got a valve on it, it dumps it out. You got your garden hose, spray it out, and you never have to pick it up or move it around just to clean it. And everything's right there. You can just dump it in and go, versus having to hook up your propane, go to the store, buy it, and it's a lot cheaper. So a lot cheaper to go electric. Right. Yeah. And beta glucanase at 130 to 40, so but each different one has different formulations. So always refer to your labels, because sometimes it's not necessarily, and sometimes they blend. Like we got a little bit off last week because sometimes they blend different amylases into one, and they kind of average the temperatures out. So it's somewhere in between. So it just depends, and always refer to your label though. Best yeast. That's there really no answer to that that's going to be correct. It's very subjective, but a good question. For beginners, you can keep it as simple as a bread yeast. For grains, a bread yeast works just perfectly fine. A good Fleischmann's or a good quality bread yeast will be fine. If you want to go a little bit more specific than that, you can go with what's a Red Star Daty, and Daty stands for Distillers Active Dry Yeast. That's what the Daty, and every year everybody calling it Daddy, Daty. But that's Distillers Active Dry Yeast, and that's just a distiller's yeast. It's a bread yeast that's specialized into a distiller's yeast. Both of those are perfectly adequate. Once you get more specialized, you may want to go to Firm Solutions and get a FSI 927 or a 921 or thousands. Literally, bro. There's Quebec yeast. There's so many different yeasts that you can use, and each of them have their pros and cons. So there's really no right answer. But for beginners, I would go with bread or a Daty yeast. Cheap, it's inexpensive, and it's good flavor. There's some big time distillers that use bread yeast, so don't let people browbeat you like a bread yeast is a bad thing, especially a Fleischmann's or something that used to be a distiller's yeast and is still used in distilling. Yeah, and you don't want to overdo it. That's what 2 pounds of sugar per gallon. Don't exceed that. That's pretty much an upper limit. About a pound and a half or a pound and a quarter can get you a little smoother product and go pretty quickly. But yeah, when you go over 2 pounds per gallon, you really you're pushing it for the yeast and for the bite. You're going to get a lot more bite. Yeah, you could put a spool, yeah, underneath the football. Yeah. The only problem is though, 2.5 inch spools and stuff is kind of a specialized size, a little tougher to find and more expensive. And then buying a reducer to go from 2.5 to 2, and then putting a 2 inch spool, and then going back to another the reducer to go back, or an enlarger to go to back to 2.5 for your football, that's going to be an adding expense as well. Uh, but it's good to have a couple of reducers, one to go into a 2-inch tube, and another one, you know, for when you come out of the football into a 2-inch, if you want to reduce it to go into a normal shotgun or something other than that canister condenser. So having a couple is pretty handy. Yeah, the outside copper shell of a shotgun condenser does nothing. That's a water jacket. The only thing that stood anything are the copper tubes inside that the vapor actually comes into contact with. What's going on, Manny Rose? Good to see you, man. Oh, suggestions for the prison shine. Don't make prison shine if you don't get put in prison. Um, there's a lot of what it's basically wine, and then they call it prison shine because it's got alcohol in it. But there's no distillation going on. But you can freeze distill, and you can make a wine and freeze distill it and pull the ice off of it and concentrate the alcohol. And that's probably going to be one of your better ways. But yeah, you can ferment about anything, any fruit juice you can get. You can ferment anything that's got sugar in it, man. Less than 80 proof. I usually do about 60 just to be on the safe side. That's right. Most people don't. There's been a few purists that preferred the propane, but most for the convenience and the expense, it's awesome. Good stuff. That's what you want for your grains. Now that's going to be a good grain, and it's good tolerance. Has a lot of tolerances as far as acidity, a lot of alcohol tolerances. It's a good yeast to use. And I'm about caught up. How about that? Update. No change. Well, there may be something else creating the viscosity. Is what I'm thinking. Basically, all these hydrometers are measuring is the syrupiness, right? Basically, for that's I don't know. That's probably not even a word, but it's measuring the viscosity or the density of it. So there might be something in there that's causing it to be a little thicker, and more, viscous, that the hydrometers are eating, right? So that's always a possibility too. But if it tastes sour, just go ahead and run it. You're not gonna get any more out of it. So, um, but it could be just something in there causing it to be more viscous, because all it's doing is its standard is water, right? It's based on water, just pure water. And what happens is as you add sugar to water, it becomes thicker and more viscous until it just turns into a Karo syrup where it's thick, and pourable to where it gets real thick, like a molasses that just drips slowly. So it can get that thick. So that's at the top end of the scale. You're not going to measure that with a hydrometer. It just won't even go in it. But it's based on viscosity, right? And so it's just an idea of how much. If you want to know exactly, there's a lot more Uh, exacting scientific equipment that will give you a much better reading, but it's hundreds if not thousands of dollars instead of four. So yeah, that's the trade-off. They do get a little sticky. I'd go ahead and run it, man. If it's been this long and the temperature's right and everything else is right, pH is everything's right, and glucose not helping it along any, just run it. It's or just let it go. It could, there's other things that you can be doing and making, and a grain bill or something that shouldn't take but a week or so, and just do some grains or something and let that just keep going. Butter in the thumper or in your still. Butter just helps reduce the foaming. That's basically, it helps the surface area. It puts a little oil on the surface area and cuts down on your foaming. A lot of people use the vegetable oil. Will do pretty much the same, but it adds a little funny flavor, whereas butter probably not as bad. Yep. All right, y'all. Well, I'm gonna cut her a little early tonight. There's not that much. You're not gonna load it down with a bunch of butter. You're not gonna be able to taste that couple pats of butter, in a big still. It's not gonna carry over. It's not like a fat wash or anything like that. Best thing to do is just don't overfill the pot. But certain things are going to foam up more than others. And you can degas if there's always an issue and you're worried about it. That same mixer, right? That same drill and mixing mud mixer. Let me show you what I use. I think I got a picture of it here. I think I saw it. Here, I use one of these on the end of a drill. Except mine was nickel plated and most of the nickel's coming off, but it's okay. It's just metal. It's not going to give you any kind of blindness or anything. Mine's not painted though. Mine was nickel plated, and some of the nickel's worn off, and sometimes it gets a little rusty right in the little corners. I don't care. And if you're going to tell me how bad that is and how horrible I am, fine. Please tell me. But they do a great job stirring things up. And if you put a little oil on it, vegetable food grade oil, it'll help keep it from rusting up on you. Wipe it down every once in a while. But they work real well, and you can degas with that. So just right before, after you rack it off, right? Don't do it before you rack it. Mix all that yeast bed back up. After you rack it off and separate it from the yeast bed, once you press it and it's all settled out and you've racked it out and you got clears, then degas with this and just go to it high speed. Just oxygenate it and take as much of the bubbling in there as you can out. And so that's my 10:45. I've got to get off here, so we're going to have to cut her a little early tonight. I promised somebody I would help them at 10:45, and it is now that time. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We will see you all Saturday. Let's see, what day is that? The 21st. And I will say next Saturday, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, there won't be a show. So hope you don't miss us too bad, but we'll be gone. I'll be gone. I'll be out of town. So won't be on the 28th, but I'll be here that Tuesday and I'll be here the next Tuesday. So hopefully you'll find something on Saturday night something to do. Just jump in the group, jump in the DIY Shine and Steel group, and y'all can chat in there. We got to create this little Discord page. Everybody getting in the chat on Discord. That's pretty cool. Maybe we'll think about that someday. Make a little DIY Shine and Militia Discord page where we can all get in there and chat in there. But that kind of defeats the purpose. You can do the same text chat in the groups. That's what they're for. So you're welcome to ask any question in either group. That's what both groups are there for. So thanks for everybody for tuning in. We will see you all Saturday, the 21st. And until then, everybody have a great week. Get you warming up. Now it's time to start doing some wine and whiskey making. So time to make some mashes now. It's starting to warm up. But again, we'll see y'all this weekend. Till then, shine on. Peace out. Love y'all. Appreciate you.